My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way that we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to give us a rating as well as then follow the program. And I think you're going to like the content we have. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a true enabler of procurement upgrades, bringing our listeners his extensive breadth of experience from over 25 years in procurement operations and strategy from businesses such as Valeo, Fresenius, and Novartis, a challenger of the status quo and a leader in procurement transformation, Stephane Morel. Stephane, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much, Sam. Thanks for the invite and the opportunity.
We're super stoked to have you. So thanks for joining. I want to start with a question that I ask a lot of the guests that we have on. What exactly does sourcing and procurement mean to you, Stephane?
Look, we've got many definitions over there that roughly say the same. I like to say that as procurement guys, we are connectors. And what we do is we should be ideally linking the business strategic needs or imperatives with the most capable suppliers. And when we do this connection well, immediately we will be creating value for the business and also hopefully for our top partners. So that's how I see it in a nutshell.
That's a fantastic way of looking at it, right? Not just a transactional role, but a one that's driving value and connecting business partners. I love that outlook. What exactly made you decide to work in procurement and sourcing, Stephane? I'm always curious about people's journeys into the role. Did procurement find you, or did you find procurement?
So look, I didn't come into procurement by chance. I studied procurement in France at a university. And then I started my career in FMCG for a few months. And then, as you've mentioned, 10, I would say tough and fantastic years in the automotive, and then
Mhm.
16 years in the healthcare. So I'm a procurement guy. I'm just look. I just love this function because I just believe in all the positive impact we can generate.
Mm. Positive impact indeed. And procurement, I think, has been lifted up year in and year out, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, as a function that's really driving value in the organization, being seen as a more strategic role in the organization as well, which is one of the first topics I'd love to talk to you about. I mean, we've been talking for many years about procurement becoming a more strategic function. Where do you think that the function is now? But also, where do you think really that the function's headed?
Yeah. So look, our ambition of being strategic is not new at all. We
No.
can find easily tons of old and good procurement roadmaps. And I will recognize I'm still very happy with those roadmaps. I'm still a big fan of
Mm.
Kraljic and the category management. But to be very clear, we've got so much work to do now still in order to achieve the final destination. You've got some multinationals, maybe already at a very good level, depending in the industry. But I would say that for the vast majority of the companies, there is still a long way to go. And I also like to say that we will always need, by the way, to be tactical, being a
Mm.
support function and buying stuff and ensuring a little bit of compliance. No, but if we don't want to be fully outsourced or digitized, we need to become strategic. That's our famous goal. So here under strategic, as I've mentioned, you put the business partnering, you put the value creation. So honestly, nothing new, no big changes there. What I think will change is how we get there, how we do procurement in the near future if it has not
Mm.
started yet. So for me, Sam, it's 50% human. And here I'm putting topics like strategy, collaboration, people. So that's the business alignment piece and the value creation piece. Then the other 50% is the machine. And in this order, I insist, we put process, data, and then tech. So that's how I see it. And if you look at today where we stand, we've got so many priorities to tackle. We've got so many things in our plate. We see that our organization have to evolve with new capabilities, with new
Yeah.
roles, and in between, the environment or the context is really constantly changing with permanent impact. So I would say that being in procurement right now is maybe tough, but I also hope that we've got also exciting times in front of us.
I agree that that's definitely exciting times in front of us. And I love that 50-50 split, that outlook on kind of how to be able to build the organization of tomorrow, or keeping the role strategic as well, as making sure that you're balancing with tactical and leveraging really not only on people but processes and technology to do so. Your LinkedIn profile, I was checking it out, of course, in preparation for today's episode, and you have something that reads so interestingly. By the way, if you don't follow Stephane, I urge you to do so. Become one of his 13,000 plus followers. He's got great content on there. But you wrote in your profile that you believe that procurement is about business acumen and collaboration for reactivity, speed, risk taking and mitigation, productivity, innovation, and sustainability in a VUCA world. I loved that particular sentence, and I pulled it out because I wanted you to possibly expand upon this for some of our listeners that might not be familiar. What is exactly a VUCA world? And what are also some of the key topics for procurement to consider in this new VUCA world, this context of VUCA?
Yeah, so VUCA or Ultra VUCA, now they want to call it even BANI. Look, the idea is that we always had impact, no? Coming from internal, external. Now the point is that those external events or external events, they are coming not one after the other, but all together at the same time. So I'm not going to give example because we've got tons of them. So
Yeah.
look, I think, and it's not a surprise, Nigel, Sam, in VUCA or BANI, whatever you want to call it, I think our axis of work will continue to be moving from cost to value, managing the supply risk, now more than ever, obviously, still sustainability, still innovation.
Mm.
I think agility now is much more recent, and digital in procurement really has become now an unavoidable key enablers for all that. But more recently, I've been reflecting on a few topics. The first one is how we should be moving from design to cost
Mm.
to design for availability, or even better, design for sustainability. I think that's the first one. Before I said moving from cost to value, so really now we have been talking a lot about that, but now it's time really to move to a TCO approach. We know that we won't and we can't do it perfectly. No worry, but let's move to this TCO approach. Another thing I see very important is I think in procurement we've got now a strategic exercise for the procurement teams. We need to be super sharp and very precise when we are going to choose between going for an SRM or using the market competition to add new sources of supplies. I think we
Mm.
cannot fail on the decision here. I also love the concept of uh, supplier to customer transparency. I think it's a fantastic topic, and we could do that for our most relevant categories. And I also clearly see that we need to evolve also our traditional change management toolbox, because in terms of change management, I think now the tools are not the same as we were using them in the past. So just in a nutshell, Sam.
Mm. Do you think that procurement generally struggles with change management? Just if we double click on that particular item for a moment.
Uh, Change management is a lot about communicating.
Mm.
And when you see procurement versus marketing, no? In
Mm.
procurement, we like to sell our results, our success stories when everything really is done. We are
Right.
surely sure that it's going to work. Everything is okay. So we wait the end of the journey to communicate,
Mm.
and nobody cares. When you are in marketing, you start before to communicate before starting the project. Meanwhile, you are doing each step of the project, and even you don't care about the results, you have been making so many communication parties whatsoever. No, so I think in procurement we are far too prudent, and we wait far too long when it's come to communicating, to engaging, and engaging our people, our stakeholders. We've got a lot to do also in change management, I guess.
That's a super interesting point as well. And I mean, it goes back to this kind of age old tale of being able to sell the function, right? And how can procurement get more influence? And obviously, it goes back to being able to not only communicate within your team to drive change, but also to drive to ensure that other stakeholders understand the importance of the role and what it is that you're working on, right? Not waiting till the end result to be able to show the impact that you're making. I think that one of the big topics, and how would I say, buzzword kind of a trigger warning here. Yes, we're going to talk a moment about ESG and corporate sustainability, right? Which everybody's talking about. But let's be honest, it is a great opportunity for procurement and sourcing teams to be able to make a real impact. And teams are taking it seriously in 2023. ESG and corporate sustainability are two of the biggest topics on everybody's agenda, right? How do you believe that procurement can really deliver on ESG, especially with in mind, right? VUCA as a concept, living in a VUCA world, but also this idea that change management is difficult, not only in procurement but in all parts of an organization. Yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts there.
Good. Well, there is a simple answer on the paper. In procurement, sustainability should be managed as a transversal program. No, so easy to say, much harder to do. So
Mm,
I guess it's important to have very clear steps. And by the way, in many cases, the company already has a sustainability function. It
yep.
could perfectly fit under an extended CPO role. But as procurement, the first thing we need to do is to align with this function. So typically, we will split there the ambitions, the ways of working between scopes 1, 2, and 3. Once we've got that clear with this function of sustainability, we can start our own procurement sustainability program. And we will have the typical, I would say, the typical work streams. So the first one is really how do we engage, how do we make the procurement organization aware? So here it's a lot about communication on the topic, on the goals, actions, good practices, lessons learned, or success stories. At one point of time, it's not going to be easy, but we need to introduce ESG targets also to our
Right.
procurement team. So that's the first work stream. A second work stream is we need to tier and engage our suppliers on the topic of ESG. So we need to make a supplier ESG ranking. It won't be perfect. I'm not worried about that. Let's try to identify who are our A supplier in terms of ESG. And then with those A suppliers, we can typically apply a kind of ACA model or whatsoever. So ACA is awareness, it's a comprehension, it's commitment, and it's action. So you first really try to communicate to your suppliers your expectation, your green expectations. No, you can publish ESG guidelines, and you can maybe put some clauses in your contracts. Then you take really those suppliers and you analyze their reporting capabilities in terms of ESG, because we need to align a little bit on the reporting. This will be I think, a pain point for quite many years still. But look, I think we have to be pragmatic, even if it's not perfect. We've got a measurement and we can see if we are going into the right direction. So we need to commit with those suppliers. They should come with some ESG targets, and then obviously with the action, you build and track the action plan. So that's the second work stream. We can obviously, from procurement, that will be the third work stream. We will work with the business on their ESG initiatives. The business is launching pilots, initiatives. We will be there. For them, it's more scope 1 and 2. So we will be there. We will be contributing. As I have said before, we will contribute also to the product design now for more
Mm,
sustainability. We can continue. I would love also to include ESG in category management and SRM. So we need ESG strategic objectives when we are doing a category strategy or when we've got an ongoing SRM programs. No? So look, all those first work streams, Sam, are completely overlapping. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, as a procurement organization, we should be comfortable with this overlap of actions, maybe no
Right.
frustration, and we continue because I would love to see ESG requirements when we launch an RFI, when we are awarding a supplier through an RFX or a strategic sourcing process. And in some companies, the final work stream, I would say, if you've got in the procurement organization a third-party risk management process, you should also include ESG targets. So you see, there is so much to do in this sustainability program that the head of sustainability from procurement will try to prioritize those different work streams. And once again, I've said, no worry with the overlaps and no worry if it's not perfect, because we know that right now, in terms of ESG, it's more the direction, looking at the progress, but the numbers are somehow so-so.
But that's also why I think it's so invaluable with the ACA approach, right? Making the commitment, but then also taking the action in that aspect, right? Because ESG isn't just about reporting. It's not just about showing a glossy result. It's about actually making impact as well. And I think that the thing that I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into is the aspects that you talked about, category management and SRM, because the fact is that those are two of the constants throughout the relationship, throughout the procurement process, right? From source to pay. Um, if you look at organizations today, what are your views on SRM? Because SRM varies in the context of organization to organization, and I think that there's a lot of terminology out there that's getting confused. The umbrella of SRM is pretty broad, just like category management. I'm curious about what are some of your views on SRM, and also how can it impact also the ESG initiative in more specifics.
Yeah. So you've said some a lot of confusion on the definition of SRM.
Mm.
Personally, the one I prefer is when we say that it's an overall company program in order to manage the relationship with very few carefully selected top vendors, top suppliers, top partners. So it's how I understand SRM.
Mm.
That's my choice. No,
Mm.
what I see today is that I see more focus on SRM rather than Catman, um, because of the collaboration is a buzzword now. So
Right.
I strongly believe in collaboration. Before we were talking about VUCA. So at the end, with this context, we need to make a quick decision in order to react quickly. To make those decisions, you need to collaborate internally first,
Mm.
and then when we collaborate internally, we can collaborate externally with customers, or in our case, with suppliers. Uh, I'm still a big believer of category management and SRM really going together hand in hand. So for me, the confusion is between supplier performance management and supplier relationship management.
Mm.
So supplier performance, it's our kind of optimized process in order to manage the core supplier. So it's where you define your sorry, your strategic objectives. In the best case, normally, generally, it's about sticking to the SLAs you've signed with its
Right.
KPIs. You
Mm.
agree on the governance mechanism, you agree and build the reporting, and then you can track the performance and the achievement. Huh? So at the end, for me, SPM, you ensure that the supplier will deliver on the contractual commitments. In short, that's the famous quarterly business reviews now based on SLA
Right.
KPIs with a continuous improvement mindset. We try to avoid those quarterly reviews where we beat the supplier. No, you've done all that bad. And by the way, what are the productivity for next semester? Those kind of practices still happen. Now, SRM is very different, much more complex. So at Novartis, we created, it was the paced approach. So for us, with those 5 steps, the first one is price. So we price the relationship to be sure that really we have the right conditions for a successful SRM. Then we align. So really it's about jointly defining an ambition and strategic goals. So not only putting our expectations from a customer point of view, but really trying to have a common or joint ambition, which is very complicated to get. Then you construct your program, so you've got your portfolio of projects. you agree on how to bring innovation. And here also it's where you decide how to tackle sustainability, Sam. So very important, sustainability is still very high in the SRM, is in the SRM program. Once again, like before, you build your reporting and track performance, so like that you can execute all that. At the end of the year, what SRM has is what we call the deliver phase. So you take some time to review where we stand in terms of partnership. No? We also confirm the continuation of the program. Those are stupid steps, but they are very important. And
Yep.
also, look, if we have to have the top executive connect, we make those connects happening. They are not easy to plan, not easy at all to execute, but we absolutely need them. So, in a nutshell, highly collaborative and structured way in order to focus. Let's do not forget that. Call it productivity, efficiencies, or spend management. We will have this topic for sure, but it's more growth, time to market, innovation, sustainability, managing risk. It's how I see it, Sam.
Fantastic insights. You are like you say yourself on your LinkedIn page, but I see it as well, and I hear it in the way that you talk. A procurement upgrader, right? You're an excellence person through and through. And I would love to focus in on that topic for a moment surrounding procurement excellence and transformation, as you're a real guru within the space and you've been doing it for the past 15 plus years at Novartis in your most recent position. With that extensive experience, I also start seeing, and I think many would agree, that the enablement roles within procurement excellence are fast becoming a crucial, a real staple, especially in global or multinationals. What do you believe is the reason for having this role in an organization? Maybe for some of our listeners out there that currently today don't have people in process excellence or strategic roles in the organization. But also, what do you also see as the second part of that question as some of the primary responsibilities of somebody that's sitting in a process, a strategy, transformation, or enablement function?
Wow. So Sam, let's go. First, we call it a center of excellence.
Yep.
I think, I don't know the name, but those centers are centers to make the other towers excellent. So that be careful with that. We say center of excellence. No, the guy who really have to be excellence are all the towers and all part of the organization we are helping. So that's the
Great
first
point.
thing, no? Um, and yes, it's important because basically what I was GPO, no? And my role as GPO was to say, look, I will try to connect the theory, the famous best practice, with real life. Because today there is a big disconnect, obviously. And it's not about going with the theory and say, look, this is how you should be doing. No, this is how we can combine, no? How we can come to an agreement between all the expectations and the hurry of the real life with what is best in class in terms of processes or methodologies. So I think it's absolutely very important to have this kind of team who are working on processes, who are working on data, and then on tech. And by the way, when we are talking about center of excellence, now we are talking more and more about tech. I will be very clear also on that. For me, tech means advanced Excel, it means also data visualization. It means RPA, bot, chatbots, no coding, low coding, and
Yeah.
finally software. So software is at the end. It's very important, but we have to consider all those different methodology within the spectrum of digital. And for me, you were saying, uh, what's really what does a COE do? Now, for me, I would split the COE in two different chapters. One is we could call it a center of excellence, where really it's about optimizing our operations and the way we work. So here you've got all the kind of policy, processes, data, systems, whatever, compliance, all that is there. But then there is another one with, I don't know the name, but those are two different areas. It's where you've got really the supplier enablement piece. So it's about really how we make SRM, how we make SPM really strong. It's about how we drive innovation. It's about how we drive sustainability and risk. Why not? It's where we create the famous ecosystem. I don't know exactly today what it means, but maybe in the future we've got something. And in this new area also, how we manage the social media also. So for me today, COE
Okay.
is taking a very, very big perimeter with very, very different roles and profiles. So I would be more than happy to split it in two, no? The efficiency and the excellence. So for me, the biggest thing for a head of center of excellence is what do we have to tackle first, no? Because they've got once again so many topics. What are the topics which will help the most the rest of the organization in order to help the business? That's the big why of a center of excellence. Not sure
So
if I'm
many.
answering, Sam.
Yeah, you're not only answering, you're providing so many great insights, and I'm curious to double down on that. When is the right time to invest in the role of a center of excellence or enablement functions in a procurement org?
Right at the beginning. And my problem, I had this question a long time ago, and I would say, yeah, but Stefan, my team is a small, and I
Right.
cannot dedicate 1%, 2%, or X person to a center of excellence. I say, look, I would try to say, maybe too crazy, but when your organization has more than 10 people, start to have one or two in the center of excellence, because
Mm.
this investment will make you save a lot of time to the rest of the procurement organization and will really accelerate your upgrade. So for me, and the time to invest in COE is right at the beginning, whatever is your level of maturity. I know it's an investment that the CPOs are not really super happy to do because it's an enablement function.
Right.
But I
It's
think
not
the return
driving
is
top
huge.
line value, right? It's not driving
Correct.
bottom line value directly. It's an
Correct.
indirect value, right? Understood. I'm curious. Do you have any concrete tips, knowing that sometimes there is this reluctancy, right, or that people are afraid to add on the role? Do you have any concrete tips for teams that are interested in developing that function, particularly?
It's the difficulty is that it's like when we say splitting tactical from strategic. There is
Mm.
no other choice, Sam, to jump in. So you've got your team. You have to eliminate no the FTEs from the existing team to create this center of excellence. Let's do
Mm.
it. And the same for buying channel strategy when we say, yeah, we need to reduce our number of people in the tactical side of procurement. No, so we are going to put all those buying channel platforms whatsoever. Yeah, if you want to achieve, what you have to do is to eliminate first those resources from your tactical team to dedicate some of them to build those buying channel strategies, platform whatsoever. So if you want things to happen, yes, during a few months, it will be tough because you will take those resources out of an existing structure. They will have less resources, the same amount of job to do during the first few months. Meanwhile, the COE is starting to deliver. So yes, this is
Mm.
creating tensions within the team, but I don't see any other way to do it. So
I
let's
think it
once
was
again
the
communicate a lot about why we are doing that, what are
right.
the benefits, and let's go through those difficult moments because it will be 6 months, not easy at all.
But it's a valid point, and I think something that's the harsh reality of change or growth. I think it was the president and CEO. The name eludes me, of IBM, that once said, "Growth and comfort do not coexist." And I think that that's the case of whether that growth is happening externally or internally within an
Totally true.
organization. Um, we've covered a lot of topics today, and unfortunately, we need to start rounding off the episode. We've covered elements related to strategic procurement, ESG, SRM, procurement excellence, so much more. What's one thing that you would provide maybe a young listener that's listening into this episode, and maybe something even that you didn't know when you started out in your role in procurement, but you know today, a tip or something to leave our listeners with?
Uh, Look, I would say that procurement is a tough but exciting job, and we've got honestly so much to do to learn. I don't care where you are, if you're in procurement in the tactical side or in the strategic side or in excellence. I would say that we need passionate procurement protagonists.
Hmm.
So look, passion, I would think, is the first driver. We need passionate people. I would say, sadly, maybe a passion to survive. It's a little bit sad, but even better, we need passion to succeed. We need passion to keep us moving, keep us growing, keep us curious. So I would say, look, with your passion, you can enter anywhere in procurement. I've said tactical, strategic excellence. It's amazing as a function. No, we've got so many different project negotiations to lead,
Mm.
relationships with suppliers, with stakeholders. We have so many supply markets to discover. We've got, and we have been commenting some of them, so many tools, methodologies. So that's amazing in terms of learning. And once again, we've got an amazing opportunity to impact our companies, to also impact our key customers, also suppliers, the planet,
Mm.
the society. So being in procurement, I think, is really great.
Fantastic insights. And it's obvious that you're passionate about the role. And I thank you so much for taking the time to be on today's episode. Before we let you go, Stephane, we do a little session called the quick fire, the Kodiak moment. As you remember, Kodak, the camera company, had a slogan, the Kodak moment, where they captured a moment in time. Now I want to capture our moment in time, so we get to learn who Stephane is a little bit more as the person rather than just the procurement guru, if you don't mind. Quick fire questions. It's nothing too serious. One word or one sentence answers, something right off the top of your head when they come at you. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. If you're turning on the TV, what sport would you want to see on?
Tennis.
Okay. Favorite tennis player?
Uh, Rafa Nadal still.
All right. Very cool. Tomorrow, you're going on a vacation, all expenses paid on the cost of Kodiak Hub. Where are you headed?
Well, I will discover Bali soon. So
Okay. All right.
thanks for that, by the way.
Very nice. Very nice. This is a disclaimer to any future guests. We are not actually sponsoring any vacations for
Correct.
those that just to make that very clear. No, but the last question then, a book or podcast that you would recommend to somebody, that's something that you listen to or is on your bedside table at the moment.
Uh, Look, the one I love also, I'm a big fan of what you're doing, but Art of Procurement is also, in terms of podcast, something very interesting. So a little bit of competition or not, healthy
No,
anyway.
no.
So Art of
Philip
Product,
and what they're doing over there,
yeah,
Philip and we know Kelly Barner and we've had her on. They're doing great stuff. So I would urge everybody to
yes.
listen into that podcast as well, for certain. Stephane, I thank you so much for your time on today's episode. It's been a real pleasure. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Look, I'm accessible on LinkedIn. We can start. We can start over there.
Fantastic. Go ahead, add him on LinkedIn if you're interested in learning more about what Stephane's doing. He's sharing a bunch of great content. If you like today's episode, make sure to give us a follow and a rating. Thank you so much for listening in. Until next time.
Tam, thank you.
Great.